Good morning, friends. I hope we're doing okay today so far, or whatever time you're watching this. Welcome. We are jumping back into the book of James today, and today our verse that we rolled was James chapter 2, verse 13. And we're going to read from 10 to 13, not very long. So the verse for the day is, "There will be no mercy for those who have not shown mercy to others. But if you have been merciful, God will be merciful when he judges you." Don't we all want mercy? But are we willing to give what we want to receive? Human beings have personality conflicts, and that's just the way the world turns ever since human beings started having feelings. So let's see if we can find some unity today, okay? We're talking about like warnings against prejudice and following all of the law instead of just part of the law. Chapter 2 is pretty good. The whole book of James is amazing, but if I had the time to talk about it, we would get deep into it. So we'll just start from 10 to 13. There's no reflection for this, so I'll just be jibber jabbering. This probably won't be as long as some of the other videos. So verse 10, so James chapter 2 verse 10. "For the person who keeps all of the laws except one is as guilty as a person who has broken all of God's laws. For the same God who said, 'You must not commit adultery,' also said, 'You must not murder.'" And also, that's cool. I like that. I'm going to just mention real quick. There's a man named Dennis Prager who is a Jewish scholar, talks a lot about the Ten Commandments and stuff. He's not Christian, obviously he's Jewish, but he's very familiar with the Bible, and he mentions how the Hebrew word, like "thou shalt not kill," is often how it's read, that commandment, but the Hebrew word that in that context is murder. He was basically saying, like, if we can't kill, right, everybody's going to be vegan. like murder is the sin, because people will take that to an extreme, like, don't kill anything. But God did give us dominion, right, over the beasts of the earth, right? So in order to consume meat, we do have to kill. There is a merciful way to do that, but that's not what we're here to talk about today. I just wanted to mention that for those who might be conflicted about that concept. "So if you murder someone but do not commit adultery, you have still broken the law. So whatever you say or whatever you do, remember that you will be judged by the law that sets you free." How free do you want to be? Just a little bit, or like all the way? "There will be no mercy for those who have not shown mercy to others. But if you have been merciful, God will be merciful when he judges you." And this whole chapter is basically like, for example, someone comes in to like where you're at and they're dressed well, they are well spoken, they're clean, well kempt, and are treated better than the person who comes in maybe uneducated, maybe a little rough around the edges. We've all probably been discriminated against at some point. But God chose the poor, right, to be rich in faith. So I think, and that brings to mind like the idea that if you have everything, there's not much need for God. That's just the way my brain works. I don't know if it makes sense, but if you have everything you need, if you're not struggling for anything, whether it's like internal satisfaction or physical abundance or whatever, um, then you got no need to be desperate. Like, no need to seek God. I have been, poor in certain areas of my life, especially like humans that struggle with addiction and problems like that, dependency issues, whether it's like on another person, like financially or emotionally, or if it's like on a chemical, like a substance, a certain way of living that can be like damaging, but also fulfilling at the same time. That can be really challenging. But you find yourself in places of desperation. So like it's common in like 12-step settings for people to use the acronym God for God as gift of desperation. And I try to remain desperate for God. I try to remain humble at God's feet. I can't keep myself humble because I am a human filled with pride, but I do often recognize my need for God just in daily life and common human failures. Lack of power is my dilemma, and I need power, and it has to be, a power greater than myself. So I find that in God. But and we're referencing hypocrisy here. You can do one good thing, but then like one bad thing, and it's not like it equals it out. you know, if you break one law, you're just as guilty as the other, breaking the other laws. That is not something that is commonly understood, especially in like the human world where, we talk about breaking like the legalities of the law versus like the spirit of the law. I was online last night and there someone was talking about this kid that I don't want to get into it, but that shot up the school recently, and that their trial is coming up soon. And just that I didn't the comments were what normal people who want justice would say, like people who are angry would say. And although I understand, I don't necessarily agree with the old law, like an eye for an eye, life for a life kind of thing. I believe in mercy. Even those who don't show mercy to others, I think they are still deserving of mercy. I don't know if that's controversial. It's just my opinion. I have been the victim of some pretty terrible violence, sexual abuse, verbal abuse, psychological abuse, and naturally I would want justice for that. And for a long time I walked around filled with this anger, this like emptiness, this rage, this need for vengeance, and it was a poison inside of me. Now I don't necessarily want to go hug those people, like please stay as far away from me as possible. But I don't know if some people are capable of rehabilitation when it comes to things like that. I don't know. It's not my job to determine. But I do know that having been on the side of the victim and also having been in positions where I have been harmful to others, not in that capacity, but in the same principle. Like we all have like prey or predatorial thoughts or mindsets or feelings, not necessarily like, most people either want to like depend on or dominate like other people, and not necessarily in like a perverse way, but obviously some people, if they're filled with that sin and filled with that darkness, it goes to those extremes, and those people do exist, right? We can't be foolish and blind to that fact. um, but like most people have these like desires for retaliation, for justice, and those are natural and right. But acting on them without God's eternal justice, God, like we said yesterday, vengeance is mine, says the Lord. I'm not in a position to teach anyone a lesson or to fix, any damage that has been done, to me or to others necessarily. But I am a child of God, and I do have a responsibility to treat others as though they are also children of God. Now, I believe in mercy. I don't believe in like martyrdom. I mean, I'm not gonna like be so merciful and so forgiving, like oozing with this like people pleasing kind of like forgiveness, like foolish forgiveness, to where like you forgive someone so much they just continue to walk all over you, and they're like, oh my gosh, look at what a great person I was, and look at what you did to me. um that's lacking mercy for yourself, and lacking like self-respect, and you know just behavior. Sometimes the most merciful thing that I can do is just leave somebody alone. um But yeah, I don't know if this is making any sense, but I couldn't find anything in the big book necessarily that like went along with this. There are places that it talks about like hypocrisy, um, but nothing concrete enough to really like have a study about right now. So anyway, this is a call to treat others the way you would want to be treated. Um, Even those who have harmed you, like it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to go forgive them and be friends again, or whatever, start a new relationship with these people, like no, not at all. um but it does mean that if we're going to live in fulfillment under God's law, we have to have mercy, um and we have to obey all the laws. Otherwise, we can't very well accuse or prosecute others who have broken the laws, God's laws. Okay. We got a justice system, and we said a few days ago that we're supposed to like honor and obey those in power, those who, you know, give justice where justice is due, as in like, criminals, criminals breaking the legal law. But the spirit of the law would say breaking one and not another isn't, you're still breaking the law. Even if it's only one law that you have broken, and the rest of them that you have obeyed, you've still broken the law. You're still as guilty as, if you're an adulterer, you're as guilty as a murderer, which is a hard concept, but it levels the playing field and gives you an opportunity to be one person among people, to have a forgiving heart, not because people deserve forgiveness, but because we need to be free of the poison that blocks us off from receiving God's grace. And when we're carrying around unforgiveness or malice in our heart, or vengeance, we shut ourselves off from the gift of forgiveness. Like Jesus said in the Sermon on the Mount, forgive us our trespasses, forgive us our sins as we forgive those who sin against us. So if I have sinned against you and you've sinned against me, like, if I'm worthy of forgiveness, so are you. And unfortunately, most people don't operate that way, which just is not justice. That's hypocrisy. So, love thy neighbor as thyself. Even your hungry neighbor, even your poor neighbor, even your rich neighbor, even your arrogant neighbor, your your abusive neighbor, your loud neighbor, your black neighbor, your Hispanic neighbor, the grandmas, the little babies, everybody. We have to love everybody. We don't have to like everybody, but we have to love everybody. And sometimes loving someone is just not talking to them. Okay? So it's okay. Like, you don't have to like them. You don't have to talk to them. But as God's people, we have to have love. Or we won't get, we have to give what we want to receive. Okay? Hope that made sense. Hope you have a great day. Make good choices. And I'll see you guys later. I'm speaking today, and I'm kind of nervous about it, in front of a bunch of strangers at some church. So wish me luck or whatever. I'll break a leg or stuff. Okay, bye.